Tenderness of feeling and sharpness of the inner senses is not something you are born with. They have to be worked hard for. You can and must consciously develop the sensitivity of your heart. Sensitivity must be cultivated. It depends upon the purity of one's consciousness. Even in the best instances, it must be developed, or, more precisely, called forth from the depths of consciousness. Let everyone develop sensitivity, then success will follow 100-fold. Over millions of years, evolution has produced a highly complex organ such as the eye, which enables us to perceive the material reality around us. This development began quite primitively, with some parts of the skin surface becoming more sensitive, so that they could at least distinguish light from dark. An unimaginable miracle for animals without eyes, such as earthworms, jellyfish, or starfish. Other animals have refined their perception in an equally natural way to such an extent that they are able to recognize much more of reality than we humans. Bees are able to see ultraviolet light. Bats hear in a range that is inaudible to man. A dog on the 3rd floor senses when its master is approaching the house on the street below. So it is not esoteric or mystical, but completely scientific to assume that in the course of evolution, we humans as well will be able to refine our senses and to develop organs allowing us to expand our perception into subtle areas of the immeasurable reality that were previously inaccessible to us. When we speak of the invisible world, we, after all, only mean that sphere which is not recognizable to the physical eye. This example shows how stupid it is to deny parts of reality just because we cannot see or touch them with our currently still coarse, limited organs. Other living beings can grasp them, and one day we will be able to do so too. The heart plays the decisive role in the further development of our inner senses. Its training and refinement does not take place in a monastery or a cave in the Himalayas, but in the midst of normal everyday life. Let us again recall that educating the heart energy must begin with the slightest sensations and the most ordinary activities. A consciousness directed to us is continually being refined. The process of refinement becomes a code of every day. Complication by grossness only demonstrates that the heart energy has not reached a level where it is no longer threatened with drowning in the waves of chaos. One must hasten with the refining process. Create refinement in the very midst of life. What can I do to refine my heart feeling? Spiritualize more and more your habits, your entire way of life, and thereby your being. What do you mean by spiritualization? Reveal the spiritual aspect of your being, your eternal individuality, in your thoughts, feelings, words, and above all in your deeds. Do not follow the desires of your lower self. Replace crude animal pleasures with spiritual ones. For example, feasting and boozing with meditation. Eradicate any coarseness that creeps in. Every act of crudeness harms your higher self. You coarsen instead of becoming finer, and crash instead of rising. Here, the cat is biting its own tail. In order to refine my heart, I should reveal my eternal being. But only a pure heart can tell me what my soul wants. Look at it this way. Every human being has an originally childlike, pure heart, no matter how deeply hidden and buried it may be. In the hours of upliftment and meditation, you can penetrate the armor of heaped up piles and get through to the pure golden core of your being. Then you will begin to perceive the softly whispering, plaintive voice of your heart. The more you carry out what it advises you to do, i.e., the more you remove the ulcers and dross that cover and suffocate it, the more audibly and clearly your soul will speak to you over time. As always, and as you will have expected, your eating habits as well play a major role in refining your heart. If you numb your delicate organ with alcohol or coarsen it with meat, it will not speak to you clearly. Simple, light food, such as rice, fruits, and vegetables, eaten in small quantities, refines your organism, your senses, and especially your heart. It is necessary to refine the senses while on earth. With due reason, a certain hermit made his daily food of herbs and leaves in order to refine his sense of taste. And when a passer-by asked his reason for this, he answered, "In order to love thee better." Thus, each subtlety is of use in the realization of the fundamentals. You can refine your being infinitely. To such a height as you cannot even imagine today. Everything can be refined, and in this is the joy of our existence. Remember our video, The Law of Evolution. At the beginning of the cycle, millions of years ago, we were purely ethereal beings who became more and more material on the descending arc of involution. On the ascending arc of evolution, which has just begun, in the coming millions of years, we are to become more and more subtle, and finally as ethereal again as we were at the beginning of the cycle. So let us refine ourselves continuously and ever further. In this way, we will eventually become higher beings of the next evolutionary stage. Humanity must realize its striving to subtle sensations. All beautiful forms of cosmos are built upon subtlety of sensations. All refined feelings create refined forms. Humanity can refine its sensations in infinity. The more sensitive your heart becomes, the more knowledge you acquire. If during the process of evolution instinct has developed into feeling, then refinement will lead to heart knowledge. Expansion of consciousness, one of the most important concerns of Agni Yoga, can be achieved by sharpening your inner senses, especially the sensitivity of the heart. The warrant of the broadening of consciousness lies in the development of sensitiveness. We always underline the concept of refinement, for it is bound up with the growth of the spirit. You open up new horizons. You recognize more and more of the infinite, immeasurable, hitherto not nearly grasped reality. You see through more and more Maya, illusion, constantly widening your field of view beyond the familiar, seeing precisely what you have not seen before, and pushing the boundaries of understanding further and further. You reduce the realm of the impossible and expand that of the possible. A widely educated person should possess a rich imagination. For such an individual, the realm of the impossible is diminished and possibilities multiply. You must provide with food not only the body, but also the heart. What do I feed my heart with? With what is called food for the soul, high thoughts, ideas, and ideals, as they flow to you in meditation and when reading holy scriptures. Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word that comes from the mouth of God. One has to start by disciplining the smallest thoughts. Only when that is done can one create a thought that moves mountains. By following this advice about putting small thoughts in order, one begins to bring health to the heart The contemplation of beauty in nature and in art as well elevates the heart and puts it into a state of high vibration. Listening to classical music in particular is downright balm to the soul. Such spiritual nourishment is also a solemn mood. This is not theory. You can feel how the atmosphere of a sanctuary, a concert hall, or an art museum lets your heart grow. There is good reason for my repeating about solemnity, for it is nourishment for the heart. Finally, your heart really does need the connection with the spiritual world to survive. You have often experienced how communion with higher souls gives you energy, hope, and joy, and strengthens your heart. The culture of the heart does not accumulate unless it receives proper nourishment. The heart demands constant nourishment. Without it, the heart is deprived of the highest link and begins to decompose. It is useful to consider communion with the higher world to be as necessary as pure air. The 3 meditation times in the morning, at noon, and in the evening precisely serve to nourish your heart. Just as you have a meal 3 times a day, even more so, you should take time to nourish your most important organ 3 times a day. Daily we partake of food, and without it regard the day as miserable. But our spirit also requires nourishment of thought, and it is a crime to pass one's day without it. The fact that the soul of man requires nourishment no less than the body, and also requires it at stated intervals of time and in sufficient quantities, is not always recognized or accepted. Consequently, in the majority of cases, that nourishment is very inadequately and intermittently supplied, and the result of such neglect is to a close observer evident in the faces and forms of the people he meets.